Welcome again to HRN Revive TV. I'm your host today, Arnold Threatt, and we will be continuing our study into the sons of Noah, which sort of took a little detour last time, and that detour will continue, but it's a good detour. It's very scenic. There's a lot of good things that we learn here and that we can be using in our everyday life to make sure, again, that we are part of the bride of Yeshua, which is described in the 3rd chapter of Revelation in the congregation of Philadelphia. So today we're going to continue to look at the life of David, and we're going to be looking in 2 Samuel 22, 1 through 51. Now, this is a somewhat lengthy read, but I think it's so important because there's so many things here that are applicable to us, because David's life is a pattern of our life, and we see all the things that David had to deal with, we had to deal with, even as running from Saul. We're running in our generation from those who want to stamp out Yahweh's people, but guess what? They don't win, we win. So join me in 2 Samuel 22, verses 1 and following. And David spoke to Yahweh the words of this song in the day of Yahweh, delivered him out of the hand of his enemies and out of the hand of Saul. I'll take a short time here to know that we will be singing the song of Yeshua in the very end, and it has a lot of the same wording and thoughts that David himself is listing in this song. So listen to what David says here, because these are some of the things that I am quite sure that after we put on the full armor of Yahweh and we are standing in the midst of this huge battle that's going to be taking place in the spiritual realm of the heavenlies, we in the very end will be singing a very similar song. So in verse 2, and he said, Yahweh is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. My Elohim is my rock, and I shall take refuge in him, my shield and the horn of my Yeshua. Now that's salvation in most translation, but that's what salvation means here to the Father, is it's his Son Yeshua. And my high tower and my refuge, my Savior, you shall save me from violence. I called on Yahweh, the one to be praised, and I shall be saved from my enemies. When the waves of death surrounded me, the flood of wickedness terrified me, the cords of Sheol were all around me, the snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called on Yahweh, and I called on my Elohim, and he heard my voice from his sanctuary, and my cry was in his ear. Now, as I was getting a mental picture here of all the things that David was going through, and you've read the scriptures, he was running from Saul, and he had to go out of Israel, back into Israel, and as he was being chased, it even from his own people within the nation of Israel started turning on him, and the tentacles of the enemy was all out to destroy him. Now, keep that in mind as we go through the struggles that we are going to be going through here in these latter days. Had he not been willing to share this song in his life on a daily basis, he would have not survived. So as you and I qualify ourselves to be, as David was, a man after Yahweh's own heart, we must put on the armor that we read about in the last session that's listed in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10 and following. And the way that we put on that armor, which is the high priest of Yeshua himself, we clean up all those places in our life that prevent him from putting those pieces of armor on us as we are. We have work to do. So as we see in David's life here, and we pick up in verse 8, and the earth shook and trembled, and the foundations of the heavens were troubled and were shaken, for he was angry. He, that is, was Yahweh. Smoke rose up in his nostrils, and fire devoured out of his mouth. Coals were kindled by it, and he bowed the heavens and came down, and thick darkness was under his feet, and he rode on a cherub and did fly, and was seen on the wings of the wind, and he made dark pavilions all around him, and gathered of waters thick clouds of the skies. From the brightness before him were kindled coals of fire. Now here, please get this mental picture. It's what David saw as he was being rescued from the very demons of hell who were trying to devour him because he was the promised seed line. You and I are in that promised seed line of Yeshua. So as you get a mental picture here, which should look a whole lot like what Israel saw at Sinai, even as Yeshua, our Yahweh, is flying through the atmosphere, he is creating so much friction that goes out before him, it looks like balls of fire, which in fact it is. So he is the mighty Elohim. He is the only one who could create such a visual picture in our minds and hearts, and he's doing that in our generation. So let us be encouraged and be eager to pursue him with all of our heart, mind, soul, and body. So as we pick up here again in verse 14, he says, Yahweh thundered from the heavens, and the Most High gave forth his voice, and he sent forth arrows and scattered them, lightning and troubled them, and the channels of the sea were seen, and the world's foundation were revealed by the rebuke of Yahweh. From the blast of his breath of his nostrils, he sent from above. He took me, he drew me up out of many waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy, from those who hated me, for they were stronger than me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, and Yahweh was my support, and he brought me out of the large place and delivered me, for he delighted in me. As we continue to be the delight of our Creator King through his Son Yeshua, he will be delivering us. The enemy of our soul is after us, but he will not succeed in having us if we are determined to pursue the Creator with all of our heart, mind, soul, and body. In verse 21, we see Yahweh rewarded me according to my righteousness and according to the cleanliness of my hands. He has repaid me. An important biblical principle for us to understand. He will not put his garments on any priest that has not been cleansed. Please hear what I'm saying to us. There is a need for us to go through the cleansing that he has in store for us, and let us embrace the judgments that he brings forth that identifies those areas in our life that need to be cleansed up. It has nothing to do with us being born again, but it is the process of being cleaned up so that we can be identified as his set-apart believers in this end time. So let us get busy about being cleaned up and putting on all this armor that he's described for us. So we pick up in verse 22, for I have kept the ways of Yahweh and have not acted wickedly against my Elohim, for all his judgments were before me. As to his statutes, I did not turn away from them, and I was blameless before him, and I kept myself from my iniquity. And Yahweh returned to me according to my righteousness, according to my cleanliness in his eyes. Here we see that, but we also hear the same language that he says about the congregation of Philadelphia. Please do your own comparison here. We have to be about being cleansed up by the Creator of the universe and about embracing the judgments that he brought about. David listed here correctly. He embraced the judgments that Yahweh brought before his eyes, and he got into the business of cleaning up his act, so to speak. Verse 26. With a faithfulness you show yourself kind. With the upright man you show yourself upright. With the pure you show yourself pure. And with the perverted you will appear perverse. So as the enemy comes after us, they are religious people who, like Shaul in his day, thought he was doing Yahweh a favor. Look at what's happening here. The religious people who are not in relationship with Yeshua, but are only keeping part of what the scriptures say they are to keep, will be coming after those who are not like them. The church of Laodicea, if you will. They are lukewarm, and Yahweh says, I want to spew you out of my mouth, are in the same time frame with the congregation of Philadelphia. So they are coming after Yahweh's anointing, thinking they are doing him a favor. Verse 28, and you shall save the afflicted people, and your eyes are on the haughty, whom you bring low. You are my lamp, O Yahweh, and Yahweh shall light up my darkness. For by you I have run through a troop. By my Elohim I have leaped over a wall. The El is blameless in his ways. The word of Yahweh is tested. He is a shield to all those who seek refuge in him. Here again is that language that we see in these end-time congregations. He is at work in our lives, ladies and gentlemen. Let us be about embracing the things that he is revealing to us so that his favor can be upon us in this generation. Verse 32. For who is El except Yahweh, and who is a rock except our Elohim? The El is my strong fortress, and he sets the blameless free in his way, making my feet like hinds' feet, even causing me to stand on my high places, teaching my hands for battle, so that my hands may bend a bow of bronze. Here again, we see that he is teaching us to do things that we physically and spiritually cannot do. Let us put ourselves in a place for the anointed spirit of Yahweh to be poured out on this congregation of Philadelphia, who is us in this end-time generation. So as we see in verse 36, he says, you have given to me this shield of your salvation, and your lowliness has made me great. You have enlarged my steps under me, and my feet have not slipped. I have pursued my enemies and destroyed them, and I did not turn until they were consumed. And I consumed them and struck them, and they did not rise, but fell under my feet. Remember what I just read a few moments ago about what the congregation was going to be facing when they realize that they are Jews and they are not Jews. He says, I will make them come and bow down under your feet. David here is saying, you have given me the strength to persevere so that they will be placed under my feet, and it's all through the strength of our high priest, Yeshua. So as we pick up in verse 40 now, we see, yea, you girded me with might for battle. You caused those rising up against me to bow under me. And you gave to me the necks of my enemies. Those hating me I silenced. They looked, and there was none to save, to Yahweh, and he did not answer them. Here again, this is an indication that they thought they had a relationship with Yahweh, but they find out, as the foolish five did, that they did not have the oil of intimacy here, and they found that there was no one to help them, and the door was closed, and they were left into the outer darkness. We assume again in verse 43, and I beat them as the dust of the earth. I crushed them small as the mire of the streets. I spread them out, and you delivered me from the quarrels of my people. Even David's own people were against him. He often stood by himself. You and I will stand often by ourselves in our congregation of the righteous. You kept me as the head of the nations. A people I have not known served me. The sons of strangers submit to me. At the hearing of the ear, they listen to me. The sons of strangers wither and shall come trembling out of their dungeons. Yahweh lives, and blessed be my rock, and is exalted the Elohim of the rock of my salvation, Yeshua. The Elohim who gives vengeance for me, and brings down people under me, and brings forth from my enemies. Yea, you raise me up above those raising up against me. You deliver me from the men of violence. On account of this, I will confess you, Yahweh, among nations, and I will sing praise to your name, a tower to Yeshua, his king, even doing mercy to his Messiah, to David and his seed forever and ever. David's declaration to Yahweh here is a song that fits everything that he went through in his life, but it also fits everything that you and I will be going through in our lifetime or the near future. Yahweh's response to David will be how he will answer our cry for his bride that he gave to us in verses 8 through 19. Remember, we emphasized him flying on a cloud and what that looked like. That's a great visual picture for us to need. Yahweh rewards us according to our righteousness, and the walk that we have before him is critically important that our walk be clean. He looks at us according to the cleanliness of our heart, and we want our Creator King to look at us through a clean, clear picture, and we want to be able to see him through that same clear, clean picture, because if we look at him in his eyes, we will be consumed by that same fire that would reveal him clearly to us. So let us pursue together the heart of the Father. And until next time, Shalom.